Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive, and this time we're heading to Japan.
Japan.
I know, right? It's one of those places that just seems to capture everyone's imagination.
Yeah.
And, there's good reason for that.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about a country with thousands of years of history, incredibly rich culture,
Mm-hmm.
amazing food.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to try to unpack at least some of that today.
Well, I'm excited to try.
Yeah, me too.
We're going to be time travelers today, basically.
Yeah.
We're going to bounce around from ancient history with samurai and shoguns
All that good stuff.
to modern day pop culture.
Oh, yeah. Anime, manga, video games, the whole deal.
Exactly. And I think what's so cool about Japan is this sort of blend
Yeah.
of really old traditions and cutting-edge technology.
Totally.
It's a place where you can have a peaceful temple from like the 8th century right next to like a skyscraper that's practically in the clouds.
That is pretty cool.
It's really wild.
Okay, so I'm already hooked.
Good.
But where do we even begin?
Right.
There's so much to cover.
Well, I think the best place to start with any culture is with their origin stories, right?
Okay, so like their mythology.
Yeah, their creation myths.
Oh, I'm into this.
So imagine two celestial beings, Izanagi and Izanami,
Okay.
standing on this like heavenly bridge,
Okay.
stirring the ocean below with a jeweled spear.
Whoa, this is already epic.
And the drops that fall from the spear,
Yeah.
those form the islands of Japan.
That's a pretty amazing origin story.
It is.
But how does that, how does an ancient myth like that actually connect to Japan as we know it today?
Well, the myth goes on to say that Amaterasu, the sun goddess,
Okay.
who's descended from Izanagi and Izanami,
Right?
that she is the ancestor of the Japanese imperial family.
Oh, so this is where the emperors come in.
Exactly. And it's this lineage, even though it's mythical,
Right.
that has given the emperors this incredibly powerful position in Japanese society.
Wow, so like they're almost seen as descended from gods?
In a way, yes.
Okay, that's pretty powerful stuff.
It is.
And I can definitely see how that would explain the deep respect that people have for the imperial family.
Oh, absolutely. And that reverence is still present even today.
Wow.
I mean, the current emperor, Naruhito, he's the 126th emperor in this unbroken line.
Unbroken, that's wild.
Going all the way back to, supposedly, the 7th century BC.
That's incredible.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
Okay, so we've got this connection between gods and emperors.
Right.
But I'm guessing early Japanese history goes beyond just myths,
Oh,
right?
of course.
Like, what other evidence do we have?
Well, archaeology, actually, gives us a pretty amazing picture of prehistoric Japan.
Ooh, I love this part.
So we have the Jomon period going all the way back to 14,000 years ago.
14,000 years, that's older than ancient Egypt.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's amazing.
So picture this, hunter-gatherer societies, crafting some of the world's oldest pottery.
Wow, so like the first potters.
Pretty much, yeah.
That is amazing.
And this pottery, it's not just, functional, it's incredibly decorated, very intricate.
What kind of decorations?
Well, the name Jomon actually refers to the patterns they used.
Okay.
Cord-marked patterns.
Oh, interesting.
So they would press cords into the clay
to
create these beautiful textures.
Wow, I mean, 14,000 years ago and they're already this creative?
It's really amazing.
It just makes you realize that, like, innovation is just baked into Japan's story from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's always been there.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Okay, so we've got the Jomon period, but then around 300 BC, we see a really big shift with the Yayoi period.
What kind of shift are we talking about?
Well, during this time, rice cultivation starts and the use of metal tools.
So they're, like, upgrading their tech.
Big time.
Yeah.
And it's likely this happened through contact with China and Korea.
Oh, so they're getting some outside influence.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this shift to agriculture, right, rice cultivation, it leads to settled communities. And that means a more complex social structure starts to develop.
Okay, so they go from nomadic hunter-gatherers to settled farmers.
Right.
That's a pretty huge change lifestyle, right?
It's a huge shift, yeah.
And did that pave the way for the rise of the emperors?
Well, it's during the Kofun period, starting around 300 AD, that we start to see the clearest evidence of this hierarchical society.
Okay, and what is Kofun?
It's named after these massive burial mounds.
Burial mounds. Okay, tell me more.
So these Kofun were built for the elite.
Okay.
And they're just like huge. Some of them are like over 400 meters long.
Whoa, that's like bigger than a football field.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So like pyramids almost.
Sort of, yeah.
Wow.
And they're visual proof, basically, of the consolidation of power in the Yamato region.
Okay.
And this is where we really start to see the beginning of the imperial line.
So these tombs are like physical symbols of their growing power?
Exactly.
That's fascinating. It's like these structures, these kofun,
Yeah.
they're like markers in time.
They are, yeah.
Showing how power is shifting and how a more centralized authority is emerging in Japan.
You got it.
This is incredible. So what happens next in this unfolding saga?
Well, hold on tight, because the Asika period is about to bring some massive changes.
What kind of changes?
We're talking about the introduction of Buddhism.
Buddhism. Okay, that's a pretty big deal.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
It comes from Korea in the 6th century.
Okay.
And it's going to have a deep and lasting impact on just about everything.
Everything.
Yeah, Japanese art, culture, even their politics.
Okay, I'm sensing this is a major turning point.
Oh, absolutely.
So was Buddhism, like, immediately embraced?
Not entirely. There were definitely some tensions with pre-existing Shinto beliefs.
Right, because Shinto is like the native religion of Japan.
Exactly, a nature-based religion. But Buddhism, it eventually took root.
Okay.
And it really flourished.
And did this have anything to do with those Taika reforms you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, those reforms are interesting. They happened in 645 AD.
Okay.
And they're all about centralizing power.
Right.
But what's fascinating is that they're heavily influenced by China.
Ah, so Japan is borrowing ideas.
They're looking at what's working in China and adapting it to their own situation.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah, it's pragmatic.
Okay, so they're centralizing power. They're taking cues from China. Yeah.
And did this lead to anything significant?
I mean, it sounds like it should.
Oh, it definitely did.
Okay, tell me more.
So those reforms paved the way for the Nara period.
Okay.
And in 7 and 10 AD, Japan gets its first permanent capital, Nara.
Whoa, a permanent capital.
Yeah, a big deal.
That is a big deal.
And get this, the city's design.
Yeah.
It's based on Kanjan,
Which is?
the grand capital of China at the time.
So they're still, like, taking inspiration from China.
They're looking at what they consider the best.
Okay.
Trying to emulate it.
That's interesting. So they're, like, admirers of Chinese culture in a way.
Yeah, definitely during this period.
Okay, and anything else important about the Nara period?
Oh, well, this is also when we get the first written records of Japanese history.
Oh, wow. So they go from oral traditions to a written record.
Yeah, it's a huge step.
What kind of records are we talking about?
Well, there's the Kojiki, which is the record of ancient matters.
Okay.
And the Nihon Shoki, the Chronicles of Japan.
Interesting.
These books collected myths, legends, genealogies, you name it.
So they're like trying to document their history.
Yeah, they're creating this foundational narrative.
It's amazing how they go from oral tradition
I know, right?
to this like formalized written history in a relatively short period.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Okay, so we've got Nara as the capital. Does it stay the capital for a long time?
It serves as the capital for about 75 years.
Okay, not too long.
But then, get ready for some serious art and elegance.
I think I'm ready.
Because we're about to enter the Heian period.
Heian period, okay.
And the capital shifts to Heian-kyo.
Heian-kyo, is that Kyoto?
That's modern-day Kyoto, exactly.
Wow. So Kyoto's been a major city for a long time.
Oh, yeah, centuries.
That's amazing.
And the Heian period, it was all about courtly life, refined aesthetics, artistic expression, you name it.
It sounds sophisticated.
It was incredibly refined.
Yeah.
Poetry, calligraphy, and a distinctly Japanese writing system all developed during this time.
Okay, so they're really coming into their own culturally.
Absolutely.
Wow, the Heian period, it just sounds like this incredibly refined and sophisticated era.
It was.
Anything else that stands out?
Well, just a minor detail.
Okay.
The world's first novel.
The world's first novel.
Was written during the Heian period.
You're kidding.
Nope.
That's amazing. And what's it called?
The Tale of Genji?
The Tale of Genji. Okay, I'm going to have to look that one up.
You should. It's a masterpiece.
And who wrote it?
A noble woman named Murasaki Shikibu.
Wow, so she was like a writer at the imperial court?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's incredible.
It's amazing.
The world's first novel, and it came from Japan.
I know, right?
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
But I have a feeling all this peace and art, it probably can't last forever, right?
Yeah, you're sensing a change.
Yeah, were there any signs of trouble on the horizon?
Well, the winds of change were definitely blowing.
Oh.
The Heian period gives way to the Kamakura period.
Kamakura, okay.
And here's where things get really interesting.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
We see the rise of the samurai.
Samurai. I knew we'd get to them eventually.
Of course.
Hey, this is what I've been waiting for.
All right, so the samurai,
yeah.
this warrior class, bound by their strict code of honor.
Bushido.
Bushido, exactly.
Okay, I'm waiting to hear about this.
So the Kamakura period,
Yep.
this is when the shogunate system is established.
Shogunate system, what's that?
It's a military government, basically, led by a shogun.
A shogun.
Yeah, and the first shogunate is set up in Kamakura.
Hence the name.
Exactly.
Okay, so this completely transforms the power structure of Japan, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But what happens to the emperor?
So the emperor is still there.
Okay.
But they become more of a symbolic figurehead.
Ah, so they're still important.
Yeah, for tradition.
But they don't have any real power.
The real power is in the hands of the shogun.
Okay, so the emperor is like the spiritual leader, and the shogun is the one calling the shot.
Yeah, the military leader.
What a fascinating dynamic.
It is, and this sets the stage for centuries of samurai rule in Japan.
Wow, so was there anything else significant about the Kamakura period?
Well, it wasn't just internal power struggles.
Oh.
Japan actually faced a major external threat during this time.
What kind of threat?
The Mongol invasion.
The Mongols?
Yeah, Kublai Khan, the Mongol ruler.
Oh, yeah, he was, like, all over the place.
Oh, he was trying to conquer pretty much everything.
Right.
And he set his sights on Japan twice.
Okay, and how did that go?
Well, both attempts failed.
That's good for Japan.
Yeah, thanks to farce Japanese resistance.
Yeah, I bet.
And according to legend, kamikaze.
Kamikaze, like the divine wind?
Exactly.
Oh,
These,
whoa.
like, massive storms that supposedly destroyed the Mongol fleets.
That's incredible.
It is. It's become a really powerful image in Japanese history.
I can imagine.
This idea of divine intervention, protecting Japan.
So it's almost like the gods themselves were on Japan's side.
That's how it was seen, yeah.
Wow, and I imagine repelling the Mongols really cemented the samurai's place as protectors of Japan.
Oh, absolutely.
It adds to their legend.
Definitely. It reinforces their role in society.
Wow, okay, so we've got the samurai. They've repelled the Mongols.
Yeah.
Everything is pretty stable, right?
Not quite.
What happens?
Well, the Kamakura shogunate, it eventually crumbles.
Okay.
And Japan enters a new period, the Muromachi period.
Muromachi. Okay, what's this one like?
Well, it's a time of political instability.
Oh, no.
Lots of rivalries.
Oh, does this mean more fighting?
Yeah, there's a lot of conflict.
Okay.
And even the shogunate itself, it fractures into competing factions.
Oh, wow. So it's like everyone is fighting everyone?
Pretty much.
Sounds kind of like a political roller coaster.
It is, yeah, a lot of ups and downs.
But did anything good come out of this chaos?
Well, even in the midst of all this turmoil,
Yeah.
culture finds a way to flourish.
Ah, that's good.
So during the Muromachi period,
Okay.
we see the emergence of no theater.
No theater.
Yeah, highly stylized drama with masked performers.
Interesting.
Really unique.
Okay, what else?
Zen Buddhism starts to grow in popularity.
Okay, I've heard of Zen Buddhism. It's all about, like, meditation and mindfulness, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the tea ceremony also developed as this, like, really refined cultural practice.
The tea ceremony?
Yeah, it's more than just drinking tea.
Oh, I know. It's like a whole ritual.
Exactly. It's very precise, very symbolic.
It's kind of reassuring that even during times of, like, intense political fighting, art and spiritual practices can still emerge.
Yeah, it shows the resilience of human creativity.
Yeah, absolutely, but I have a feeling things are about to get even more chaotic.
You would be right.
I'm scared to ask, but what happens next?
We're about to enter the Sengoku period.
Sengoku period, okay.
Also known as the Warring States period.
Warring States, okay, that sounds ominous.
It was a pretty wild time.
So what happens?
Imagine Japan fragmented into dozens of small domains.
Yay.
Each ruled by a daimyo.
Daimyo, what's a daimyo?
Basically a feudal lord.
Okay.
And these daimyo are constantly at war with each other.
Oh, wow, so this is like all-out war.
Yeah, it leads to nearly 150 years of constant conflict.
150 years, that's a long time to be at war.
It was a brutal period.
Wow.
But it was also a period of incredible innovation.
Innovation.
Yeah, in military tactics, in strategy, in weaponry.
I mean, I guess war often forces people to innovate.
Sadly, that's true.
But it also gave rise to some pretty remarkable figures, right?
Oh, absolutely. The Sengoku period is bursting with larger-than-life personalities.
Okay, give me some names.
All right, well, first you've got Oda Nobunaga.
Oda Nobunaga, okay.
He was this brilliant but ruthless strategist who starts unifying Japan through conquest.
Wow, so he's like trying to bring everyone under his rule?
Exactly, but then he's betrayed and killed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's a pretty dramatic story.
Okay, so what happens then?
His successor, Toyotomi Hideyoshi.
Toyotomi Hideyoshi, okay.
He continues this task of unification.
Okay.
Even trying to invade Korea.
Yeah, he's ambitious.
He was, but ultimately unsuccessful.
Okay, so we're getting closer to a unified Japan, right?
We are.
So who's the one who finally manages to bring it all together?
That would be Tokugawa Ieyasu.
Tokugawa Ieyasu. Okay, tell me about him.
So after this decisive victory at the Battle of Sekibahara in 1600,
Okay.
he establishes the Tokugawa shogunate.
Okay.
And this ushers in the Edo period.
The Edo period? Okay.
A period marked by peace, stability.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but also, surprisingly, isolation?
Wait, isolation? After all that fighting to unify the country?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, totally.
But the Tokugawa shogunate, they had their reasons.
Okay, what were they thinking?
They saw foreign influence as a threat.
A threat to their power.
Exactly. So they implement this policy called sakoku.
Sakoku.
Yeah, which severely restricts contact with the outside world.
Oh, wow. So they basically shut themselves off.
Pretty much.
For how long?
For over 200 years.
200 years. That's wild.
It is. It's a really unique period in Japanese history.
So Japan basically chooses this path of, like, self-imposed exile?
You could say that, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Okay, so now we've got Japan in isolation. What's life like during this period? Well, on the one hand, you've got this really rigid social order.
Okay, what do you mean?
It's very hierarchical.
Okay.
Samurai at the top.
Right.
Then farmers, artisans, and merchants at the bottom.
So not a lot of room for social mobility.
Not really, no.
Okay, so it's a very structured society.
Yeah, very strict.
But on the other hand,
yeah,
you mentioned cultural flourishing, right?
Oh, yeah. So despite all these restrictions,
Yeah.
the Edo period sees this amazing cultural blossoming.
Okay, give me some examples.
Well, kabuki theater becomes super popular.
Kabuki theater.
Yeah, it's got these dramatic performances, elaborate costumes, really over the top.
Sounds fun.
It is. Very entertaining.
Okay, what else?
And then you've got bukiyo-e woodblock prints.
Ukiyo-e, okay.
Yeah, there are these beautiful prints.
What kind of stuff do they depict?
Scenes of everyday life, landscapes, beautiful courtesans.
Oh, interesting.
It's a really unique art form.
So it's like this society with very strict rules, but
Yeah.
also this, like, bursting with artistic expression.
Exactly. It's a fascinating contradiction.
It really is. But I have a feeling this isolation can't last forever, right?
Right.
Something's got to give.
Yeah. Fast forward to the 1850s.
Okay.
And the arrival of American Commodore Matthew Perry.
Matthew Perry.
Yeah, with his black ship.
Black ship.
These, like, powerful, steam-powered warships.
Okay.
It forces Japan to open up again.
So this is the end of isolation.
Yeah, the end of Sakoku.
Okay.
The Tokugawa shogunate crumbles.
Oh, no.
And we enter a truly pivotal moment.
Which is?
The Meiji Restoration.
Okay, the Meiji Restoration. That sounds important.
It is. It's a huge turning point in Japanese history.
So what exactly does restoration mean in this context?
Well, in 1868,
Okay.
the emperor is restored to power.
Oh, so they get their power back.
After centuries of rule by shoguns.
Yeah, it's like a comeback story.
It is.
And this new era, the Meiji era, what's it like?
It's a time of radical change.
Okay, like what?
Rapid modernization, industrialization.
So they're playing catch-up.
Big time, yeah.
Wow.
Japan is determined to catch up with the West.
Okay, and how do they do it?
They adopt Western technologies, reform their military, their education system, their entire economy.
Wow, they're not wasting any time.
Nope, it's a whirlwind of change.
That's incredible. You go from isolation to, like, hyper-modernization in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, that's amazing.
The Meiji Restoration must have been like this massive shock to the system.
Oh, it was, but they embraced it.
Wow. And did this set the stage for Japan's emergence as, like, a global power?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, in 1905,
Yeah.
Japan fights the Russo-Japanese War.
Against Russia.
Against Russia.
Wow.
And they win.
They win.
A decisive victory.
That's incredible.
It sends shockwaves through the world.
Yeah, I bet.
Because it shows that a non-Western nation can defeat a major European power.
That's a huge deal.
It marks Japan's arrival as a force to be reckoned with.
Wow, from battling feudal lords to taking on Russia.
I know, right?
And emerging victorious. What a journey.
It is. It's an amazing story.
I'm definitely eager to hear what happens next.
Me too. There's so much more to cover.
But I think we've covered a lot of ground for now.
We have, yeah.
We've gone from ancient myths to modern warfare.
It's pretty remarkable how much ground we've covered.
It is truly remarkable.
And it really just highlights how much this nation has achieved and endured throughout its history.
Absolutely. So listeners, let all that sink in for a moment, okay? We'll be right back, and when we come back, we'll continue our deep dive into Japan.
Okay.
Exploring the modern era, all the challenges it faces, and what the future might hold. Stay tuned.
I can't wait.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into Japan. Last time we left off with Japan's victory against Russia in 1905.
Yeah, it was a huge moment for them.
Totally. It really put them on the map as, like, a major world power.
Exactly, and it sets the stage for a really interesting period in Japanese history.
Okay, so what happens next?
Well, the next few decades are a fascinating mix of progress and turmoil, ultimately culminating in a really tragic period for Japan with World War II.
Yeah, that's a part of their history that I think a lot of people know about.
Right, but I think it's important to understand the context, how they got there.
Yeah, totally.
So after the Russo-Japanese War, we have the Taisho period.
Taisho period,
And it
right?
lasts from 1912 to 1926.
Okay.
And then we move into the Showa period.
Okay, and the Showa period is the one that includes World War II, right?
Yeah, it starts in 1926 and goes all the way to 1989.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is.
So let's start with the Taisho period.
Okay.
You mentioned it was a time of progress, so what was happening?
It was a period of some pretty significant democratization.
Democratization. Okay, so what did that look like in Japan?
Think growing urban culture, artistic experimentation.
Okay, so like a cultural blossoming.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
And there were also these political reform movements gaining momentum.
Oh, interesting.
You had a rising middle class that was becoming more assertive.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And there were genuine efforts to, like, expand suffrage.
Okay, so give more people the right to vote.
Exactly.
Okay, that's pretty progressive.
It was a time of, like, a liberal shift in Japanese society.
Okay, so almost like a Japanese version of like the Roaring Twenties.
Yeah, you could see it that way.
But you said it was short-lived, so what happened?
Well, a few things contributed to the end of the Taisho period.
Okay.
There was economic instability.
Right, because the Great Depression was happening around this time.
Right, exactly. That had global repercussions.
Yeah.
And then there were political assassinations.
Oh, wow.
And the rise of ultranationalist and militarist factions.
So things are taking a turn for the worse.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, so this sets the stage for the Showa period.
Right, and unfortunately, the Showa period, it's marked by the rise of Japanese militarism.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit earlier.
And this ultimately leads to their involvement in World War II.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. How did militarism take hold in Japan?
Well, there were a lot of factors at play.
Yeah.
But one of the big ones was economic hardship.
Okay.
Japan was hit hard by the Great Depression.
Right, just like the rest of the world.
Yeah, and this hardship, it fueled a growing sense of nationalism.
So people are looking for someone to blame.
Yeah, and they're looking for solutions.
Okay.
And the military, they start to present themselves as, like, the answer.
The answer to Japan's problems.
Yeah, they promise strength, they promise expansion, they promise to restore Japan's glory.
It's a powerful message, especially when people are struggling.
It is, and as a result, the military gains more and more influence over the government.
Okay, so they're basically calling the shots now.
Pretty much.
And this is when things start to get really dangerous, right?
Yeah, because Japan starts down a path of aggressive military expansion.
Okay, so what do they do?
Well, it starts with the invasion of Manchuria in 1931.
Manchuria, that's in China, right?
Yeah, it's in northeastern China.
Okay.
And then in 1937, they launch a full-scale war with China.
Oh, wow, so they're not messing around.
Nope, they're committed to this path of expansion.
So this is where Japan's actions, they really take a dark turn.
Yeah, it's a tragic period.
And this ultimately leads to their involvement in World War II.
Yeah, in 1941, Japan launches a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor, that's what brings the United States into the war, right?
Exactly. It's a major turning point.
And how does the war go for Japan?
Well, they have some early victories.
Okay.
But ultimately, they face defeat in 1945.
Right, after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah, those were horrific events that left a lasting scar on Japan and the world.
It's hard to even imagine what it must have been like.
It was a devastating time.
So what happens to Japan in the aftermath of the war?
Well, from 1945 to 1952, Japan is occupied by Allied forces led by the United States.
Okay, so they're basically under American control?
Yeah, and during this occupation, Japan undergoes a pretty radical transformation.
Okay, what kind of transformation?
Demilitarization.
So they're stripped of their military.
Right, and democratization.
So they're moving towards a more democratic system.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a lot of change in a short amount of time.
It was, and a new constitution is adopted.
Okay, what does that constitution say?
Well, it renounces war.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, and it guarantees a fundamental human rights.
So they're really trying to rebuild their society from the ground up.
They are, and the emperor, he's stripped of his political power.
Okay, so no more emperor ruling Japan.
Well, he becomes a symbol of the state.
So like a figurehead.
Exactly, a role he continues to hold today.
Okay, so it was a truly radical shift.
It was a complete overhaul of their political system.
Wow, and did this lay the foundation for the modern Japan we know today?
Absolutely, because with American support, Japan experiences this incredible economic recovery.
Oh yeah, I've heard about this, the Japanese economic miracle, right?
Yeah, they rebuild their industries at an astonishing pace.
What kinds of industries?
Well, we're talking about companies like Sony, Toyota, Honda.
Oh wow, those are all huge companies today.
Exactly, and they all rose to prominence during this period.
So they go from being devastated by war to becoming a global economic powerhouse.
It's pretty remarkable.
It really is, but I imagine there were challenges along the way.
Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
What were some of the difficulties they face?
Well, this rapid economic growth, it came with social costs.
Okay, like what?
Well, think long working hours,
Yeah,
intense competition,
okay.
and this relentless focus on economic success.
So it was like work, work, work.
Pretty much, yeah.
And was this sustainable?
Well, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, Japan's economic bubble bursts.
Oh, the bubble burst. I've heard about this.
It led to a period of economic stagnation.
They call it the lost decade, right?
Yeah, it was a difficult time for Japan.
So did they ever fully recover?
I mean, it was a major setback, and in many ways, Japan is still grappling with the effects.
Okay.
But even so, they've remained a technologically advanced and highly developed nation.
Yeah, I mean, Japan is still a leader in so many fields.
Exactly, and they've made significant progress in areas like renewable energy, robotics.
So they're still innovating.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. So despite its challenges, Japan has shown incredible resilience.
Yeah, it's really remarkable.
And that resilience, I mean, you can see it in how they've navigated the 21st century.
Right, because they've faced some serious issues.
Like what?
Well, the aging population, the low birth rate.
Those are big challenges.
They are, and then there are natural disasters like the 2011 earthquake and tsunami.
Yeah, that was devastating.
It was a terrible tragedy, but Japan, they've shown an incredible ability to bounce back.
Rebuild.
Yeah, rebuild and adapt.
Okay, so where does that leave Japan today?
Well, they're kind of at a crossroads, right?
Okay.
They're trying to balance this rich cultural heritage with the demands of an ever-changing world.
Yeah, that's a tough balancing act.
It is.
And what do you think the future holds for Japan?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, if history is any indication,
Yeah,
they'll find a way to adapt, they'll innovate,
they always do.
and they'll forge a path that honors their past while embracing the possibilities of the future.
Well said. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do next.
Me too. It's a fascinating country.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot in this part. I think it's time to take a little break.
Okay, sounds good.
And when we come back,
Yeah.
we'll dive into the world of Japanese culture.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff, anime, manga, J-pop, and of course, the amazing food. Stay tuned. And we are back for the final part of our deep dive into Japan.
I'm excited for this part.
Me too.
This is where we get to talk about all the fun stuff.
Yeah, the stuff that I think a lot of people associate with Japan today.
Exactly. Like when you think of Japan, what comes to mind?
I mean, for me, it's definitely the pop culture,
Yeah.
anime, manga, video games, all that good
That's
stuff.
what we're going to talk about.
Awesome.
Because Japanese culture, it's really become this global phenomenon.
It has. It's everywhere.
And for good reason, it's incredibly creative, it's innovative,
Yeah.
and there's just this like unique energy to it.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's definitely there.
And what's fascinating is how they manage to like seamlessly blend tradition with modernity.
Yeah, totally.
It's like you can have an ancient tea ceremony happening,
Yeah,
and then just a few blocks away, there's a bustling arcade with the latest video games.
that's so true.
It's this incredible juxtaposition that you don't really find anywhere else.
Okay, well, speaking of video games, we got to talk about that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Japan is like the video game capital of the world.
It's true. They've given us some of the most iconic video game franchises of all time.
Like what?
Super Mario, Pokemon, Final Fantasy, Resident Evil, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, those are all classics.
And not to mention the consoles, right? Nintendo, PlayStation.
Yeah, I grew up playing all of those.
Me too. And it's not just, mindless entertainment.
Yeah.
These games, they often draw inspiration from Japanese history, mythology, social values.
You're right. You can see those themes woven into so many of the games.
It's fascinating how they incorporate these elements into their storytelling.
It's really clever.
Okay, so we've got video games, but we can't forget about anime and manga.
Oh, yeah, those are huge.
Huge, and they're like two sides of the same coin, right?
Okay, so explain that.
Anime is the animation, right? Those shows and movies with that distinct art style.
Yeah.
And often these really complex storylines.
Oh, yeah, some of those storylines could get pretty intense.
Oh, they can.
And manga.
Manga is the comics, basically.
Okay, got it.
And they cover every genre you can imagine.
I've definitely spent hours browsing manga in bookstores.
Oh, me too. It's like a rabbit hole. You can get lost in there for hours.
So what is it about anime and manga that makes them so appealing, do you think?
Well, on a surface level, there's the art style. right?
Yeah, it's very distinctive.
It's very eye-catching, very expressive.
Okay.
But I think what really hooks people are the stories.
Yeah, the stories are often really captivating.
They can be really deep, really thought-provoking.
Yeah, they go way beyond, like, typical cartoons or comics.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what resonates with people, especially outside of Japan.
Yeah, they're dealing with these, like, universal themes.
Right. They're exploring things like coming of age,
Yeah.
societal pressures, love, loss, the meaning of life.
It's pretty heavy stuff.
It can be, yeah, but it's always presented in a way that's engaging, entertaining.
Yeah, that's true. It's never boring.
And I think it can be a way for people to, like, process emotions, see things from different perspectives.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, so we've got video games, we've got anime and manga.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Well, we can't forget about the music, right?
Oh, the music.
J-pop,
J-pop, yeah, Japanese pop music.
another huge cultural export.
It is. It's incredibly catchy. It's got this, like, energy to it.
Yeah, it's very upbeat.
And often, like, really visually captivating choreography.
Yeah, the music videos are always like a whole production.
They are, and it's evolved over the years,
Yeah.
but it's always reflected the, I don't know, the dynamism of Japanese youth culture.
Okay, and what about the fans? Because I know J-pop fans are like incredibly dedicated.
Oh, yeah, fandom in Japan, it's a whole other level.
What do you mean?
Well, think massive conventions,
Okay.
like Comic-Hit, which is dedicated to self-published comics and fan art.
Wow, so it's like a giant celebration of fandom.
It is, and then you've got cosplayers.
Cosplayers, yeah.
Who put so much effort into, like, creating these elaborate costumes.
Oh yeah, the level of detail is incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like performance art, almost.
It's like they're bringing their favorite characters to life.
Exactly, and it just shows how passionate and dedicated fans are.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
Okay, so we've got video games, anime, manga, J-pop.
I feel like we're missing something.
What are we missing?
The food. We can't talk about Japanese culture without talking about the food.
Oh, of course, the food.
It's like a cultural phenomenon in itself.
It is. Japanese cuisine has really taken the world by storm.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And for good reason. It's delicious. It's healthy.
And it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. The presentation is always so meticulous.
It's like art on a plate.
And there's just this, like, respect for ingredients, for tradition.
Yeah, it's more than just a meal. It's an experience.
Exactly. It's about savoring the moment, appreciating the flavors, the textures.
Okay, so give me some examples.
All right. Well, we've got sushi, obviously.
Yeah, everyone loves sushi.
It's become, like, synonymous with Japanese cuisine.
But there's so much more than just sushi.
Oh, yeah, so much more.
Like what?
Ramen, for example.
Oh, ramen is amazing.
It's so comforting, so flavorful.
Okay, what else?
Tempura.
Tempura.
Yeah.
Those crispy, battered, deep-fried vegetables and seafood. So good.
Okay, and then we have yakitori.
Yakitori, that's the grilled chicken skewers, right?
Exactly. I love those. And then there are all sorts of, like, traditional dishes, like
Oh.
miso soup, rice balls, pickled vegetables, you name it.
It's making me hungry just thinking about it.
Me too. And what I love about Japanese food is that it's always so balanced.
Yeah, it's healthy and delicious.
Exactly. It's like the best of both worlds.
Okay, so we've explored all these different facets of Japanese culture.
Yeah.
From ancient traditions to modern-day pop culture.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, and it makes you realize just how vibrant and influential Japan really is.
It's a country that's constantly evolving, constantly creating new things.
And inspiring people all over the world.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think, what does the future hold for Japan?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if there's one thing we've learned from this deep dive,
Yep.
it's that Japan is a country that knows how to adapt,
Yep.
how to innovate,
Hmm.
and how to face challenges head-on.
Well said. So what final message would you leave our listeners with?
I would say keep your eyes on Japan, because this is a country that never ceases to amaze.
Couldn't agree more. Well, listeners, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Japan.
It's been a journey.
It has. We've explored thousands of years of history.
Incredible culture.
Delicious food.
And I think it's safe to say that Japan is a country that will continue to captivate and inspire for generations to come.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep your eyes on Japan. Sayonara for now.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed that content, I would be happy if you would leave a like and a subscription here. If you have questions or feedback, just leave it in the comments. Have fun, stay healthy, until next time.